Hello and welcome. Those who are about to listen to this lecture of mine, I would recommend you to first go to translation part 1 and have a knowledge of the tRNAs and its functioning, and then the next part, the prokaryotic protein synthesis. The picture which I have created here in paint, I used paintbrush for this. I want you to fix this in your mind. There are three types of RNAs assembled in this picture, and that is a beautiful picture of translation. There is mRNA on which a 30S and a 50S subunit have been attached, and on the 50S subunit, three tRNAs with three different amino acids are attached. I want you to capture this picture in your memory forever. Or in whatever fashion you may want to imagine, you imagine, but this is the assembly of three types of RNA molecules, which makes the whole process a beautiful process of polypeptide chain synthesis or the prokaryotic protein synthesis. There are major differences in the translation of eukaryotes and prokaryotes, but the basic process is same. That is, there is initiation, elongation and termination. Marked differences are there right from the point of transcription to the point of translation between eukaryotes and prokaryotes. But as this is a course of microbial genetics, I would be mostly emphasizing on the prokaryotic protein synthesis. So as I said, these pictures need to be fixed in your minds. If you just see here, the transcription, it has only two things, DNA and a RNA polymerase, two molecules, DNA and RNA polymerase for transcription, and the product is mRNA. Everything finishes there. Initiation, elongation and termination of transcription starts on a DNA, ends on a DNA. Whereas initiation, elongation and termination of translation, that is the actual protein synthesis, starts on the mRNA, elongates by assembling amino acids by the ribosomes, and terminates on the nonsense codons of mRNA. Transcription termination, there are two types, that is row dependent one and row independent one. Whereas translation terminates by the virtue of three nonsense codons, UAA, UGA and UAG. There are three nonsense codons. Why they are called as nonsense codons? Because they don't code for any tRNAs. There are no tRNAs to recognize them. So suddenly the ribosomal subunits, it dissociates. What happens when these ribosomal units come and dissociate at the nonsense codon? It comes back again at the UG codon to restart the translation process. So a continuous recycling takes place. This is the basic mechanism of translation. This is the basic mechanism of transcription plus translation, and combinedly these give rise to a polypeptide chain, which is a protein, which can be an enzyme, and which can be all other things which the protein functions in the cell. So remember, now in this lecture, initiation, elongation and termination will be with respect to the coding sequences on the mRNA. Initiation codon will be there, elongation refers to the joining of polypeptide chain, and termination refers to the nonsense codons. So this is the picture for translation which I want you to keep fixed in your minds. mRNA, ribosome, tRNAs. These are the main elements or the accessories required for protein synthesis. The cell is a huge protein synthesizing factory. 24/7 it is continuously synthesizing proteins, because proteins are needed for all the metabolic activities. So you see, genetics is the hub of all biological processes, all biological sciences, even in medical diseases. If you want to, genetic inherited diseases are there, that takes place somewhere, regulated somewhere on the DNA. So DNA is the blueprint of life, they say. This is a conclusion. Genetics is the blueprint of life. This is a conclusion of hundreds of different processes which this DNA is capable of carrying. and we are trying to see one simple process here called as translation. So just have a recap of what you saw in my last lecture of part 1, the tRNA, functions of the tRNA. So these pictures must be very familiar to you, how the 50s subunit accommodates 3 tRNAs and how the tRNA are charged. Charging means correct amino acid being bought with respect to the correct anticodon. So this is just a recap. Now we will start the process of translation. Translation begins with the 30s subunit binding to the 50s subunit on the mRNA. How does that begin? How does that happen? We will see. But before that, try to have some words again fixed in your, cement these words in your mind. Translation, protein synthesis, gene expression, almost many a times they are used synonymously. Means if you are talking about translation, you are talking somewhere about gene expression, and gene expression means protein synthesis, and protein synthesis is carried out in 3 steps: initiation, elongation and termination. These 3 steps takes place on the mRNA. mRNA is responsible for providing all the necessary information for this initiation, elongation and termination. Initiation is formation of a transitional complex where the tRNA brings the first amino acid. Elongation starts with, you can see here, the joining of amino acids to form a polypeptide chain, and termination is releasing these polypeptide chain into cytoplasm, by also releasing the 50 and 30s subunit so that they can restart again. So this is the basic process. Now let us just explore each step in detail. The beginning of translation. How does the translation begin? In prokaryotes, initiation of translation, it requires the formation of an initiation complex, which includes, there is an initiation complex which includes a mRNA, a 30s subunit and a 50s subunit, and a initiator tRNA which is charged with N-formyl methionine. Okay, the first tRNA to be coming at the point of protein synthesis, the actual protein. I am not talking about the nascent protein. Wherever the ribosomal subunit binds and starts to move on the mRNA, the movement is called as translocation. Immediately as it starts, there is a small polypeptide found, but that is of no significance. Not from that point of view, but from the point of view of the actual protein synthesis, where the first AUG codon is synthesized, you need an initiator tRNA which is called as N-formyl methionine. A small ribosomal subunit, that is the 30s subunit, mRNA strand and the ribosome binding sequence of the mRNA is needed, which is complementary to the part of the RNA. This ribosome binding sequence is called as the Shine-Dalgarno sequence. I will explain it in the next slides. The ribosome binding sequence of mRNA, which is complementary to 30s. 30s has to bind to mRNA and 50s has to bind there. So this joining point of 30s, 50s and the mRNA is the Shine-Dalgarno sequence. So that is the initiation. But how does the translation takes place? Translation proceeds with the addition of amino acids. A charged tRNA, first a charged tRNA, it binds to the A site of the anticodon and is complementary to the codon of the site at the amino acid binding site. Second, peptidyl transferase, it forms a peptide bond. Third, the ribosome moves down the mRNA. This is what I have been repeating even during the tRNA structure elaboration. Ribosome moves, translocation takes place. This is a fixed direction. From 5' end of the mRNA to 3' end of the mRNA, translocation takes place. Elongation continues until the ribosome encounters a nonsense codon or a stop codon, and there the termination of protein synthesis takes place. These stop codons, they have to get recognized by, means as you see, the sense codons are recognized by tRNA. These stop codons, they are instead of the tRNA recognized by some proteins, special proteins which are called as release factors, and these release factors release the polypeptide chain, the 30s subunit, 50s subunit, etc. Now the main question during initiation of protein synthesis is, how does the ribosome know where to start the translation? As I just showed in my previous slide, that the mRNA has a complementary binding sequence for the 30s subunit. So this complementary sequence is called as the Shine-Dalgarno sequence. I will come to that. So this is a mRNA. There is the first AUG codon from where the actual protein synthesis will start. And actual, what do I mean when I say actual protein synthesis? If the ribosome is binding at this point, some bases away from the AUG, and it is starting, and even a polypeptide chain is being formed, which you call it as a nascent polypeptide. Is that not the actual protein synthesis? Yes, that is the actual protein synthesis, but that is not the gene. The gene for the protein starts when a first AUG codon is encountered by the ribosome. Who or what decides the first AUG codon? Remember, for all such questions, the answer is evolution. You don't know, I don't know, the scientists, they are still exploring how that AUG codon is fixed there. That is hundreds and millions of years of evolution which all these processes have sustained, the environment conditions, the nutrient conditions, etc. And generation by generation, eons after that, the cell has evolved for what we are knowing today. And maybe we don't, whatever we know is just the tip of the iceberg. We still don't know a great detail about it. We just go on accumulating the knowledge as we get the information by molecular level studies. So studies have revealed that when the first AUG codon encounters, there the gene starts, actual gene starts. And what happens with the polypeptide chain which is just behind that? It is trimmed off in the post-translational processing. After the translation is over, there are some protease molecules. Now what is the role of protease in the cell? Protease trims such polypeptide chains and it just allows a functional protein to act on the substrate. Anyway, so how does the ribosome know where to start the translation? The sequences on the mRNA here, they serve as signals for initiation of protein synthesis in bacteria just before -10. So this is a consensus region. Whenever you talk about a reading frame, we use the word consensus. So this consensus, -10 consensus, purine rich region. It is a purine rich region, and alignment of the initiating AUG here shaded in green here. You can see AUG and its correct location on the 30th subunit of the ribosome. 30th subunit of the ribosome depends upon a -10 upstream purine rich region, which is called as the Shine-Dalgarno sequence, shown in red here. As you can show, this is the red in prokaryotic. Now the base is mRNA, the top is the 30th subunit. So in 30th, see the laser pointer, the 30th subunit has complementary sequences to a very fixed sequence on the mRNA, AGG, AGGU. So this is purine rich region, adenine, guanine, purines. So purine rich region, complementary sequence for that in the 30th subunit. So there is attachment. All these pairings are not permanent pairings. These are temporary dynamic pairings which are only for the movement, not movement of time where protein has to be synthesized. So this alignment of the region on the 30th ribosomal subunit depends upon the Shine-Dalgarno sequence, which is located -10 base pairs upstream of the start codon. -10 base pair of the start codon. This Shine-Dalgarno sequence, of course, Shine-Dalgarno, name of the scientist to discover them, pairs with the sequence near the 3' end of the 16S region. So you see this in figure now. This is the Shine-Dalgarno sequence. Here there is the first AUG codon, -10 base pairs. This is the mRNA, and this is the 16S RNA of the 30th subunit. Now here recall the structure of 30S. We had deconstructed the 30S subunits. It is made up of 16S RNA, some proteins plus some 5S RNA. So this part of 16S RNA of the 30S subunit binds to the mRNA, which has a complementary sequence, and that is called as the Shine-Dalgarno sequence. As you can see here, Shine-Dalgarno sequence on the mRNA complementary with the 16S RNA sequence, and the small subunit of ribosome with the initiate. This is IF factor, initiating factor. I will come to that. Initiation of the binding of 50s and 30s, all this initiation complex which you say requires initiation factors. 3 initiation factors are required. In the next slide I will talk about this initiation factor. So a initiation factor, a small unit of ribosome, the mRNA, they come together and they bind. The Shine-Dalgarno sequence is a ribosomal binding site. Remember, how do you define Shine-Dalgarno sequence? This is what Pribno boxes is for RNA polymerase. Think for a few seconds what I just said. What Pribno boxes are for RNA polymerase, Shine-Dalgarno sequences are for ribosomes. Those who are following my lectures will understand what I just said. So Shine-Dalgarno is for ribosomal binding, Pribno boxes is for RNA polymerase binding. So the Shine-Dalgarno sequence is ribosomal binding site in the bacteria and archaebacteria also. Archaebacterial messenger RNA generally located around 8 to 10 bases upstream of the start codon. The RNA sequence helps the ribosome bind to the messenger RNA so as to initiate the protein synthesis by aligning the ribosome with the start codon. So it comes and gets aligned at the start codon. So you can see this is how initiation takes place. The Shine-Dalgarno sequence is the ribosome binding site. Follow my laser pointer here. Ribosome binding site, then initiation factors are needed. Small subunits of the ribosome, that is the 30s subunit of the ribosome, it binds to the mRNA. Say here, second figure, mRNA binds at the Shine-Dalgarno sequence. 16S rRNA in the 30s ribosome and the minus 10 bases of AUG codon. This can be different for different mRNAs. Okay, they bind, and then at this point F-met tRNA, N-formyl methionine tRNA. This is the formation of initiation complex. We will call this as initiation complex. So you see the first tRNA comes without the need for 50s ribosomal subunit. There is no 50s initially. So only on the basis of the AUG codon a tRNA comes. There is a mRNA, 30s has bound at the Shine-Dalgarno sequence, and now this is ready for the 50s large subunit to bind, and the large subunit comes and binds with A site and E sites. Now it is ready to accept. Here there is an incoming channel for amino acid, there is an outgoing channel for amino acid, and a tRNA comes here, a polypeptide bond will be formed, and through this pore the polypeptide chain will be released. I have given some links in the section below. You can follow those links and see the beautiful animation how the polypeptide chain is released and how it folds. So this is the initiation step. Initiation step is comprised of various protein factors, initiation factors. These are the bacterial initiation factors 1, 2, 3. Initiation factor 1 and 3 they bind to the 30s subunit. See here. Initiation factor 2 binds to the mRNA and the tRNA. Means initiation factor 2 is mediating the tRNA and the mRNA attachment. See the position of the initiation factors given here. Those are very important. The 30s subunit and the 16S Shine-Dalgarno sequence activation is done by initiation factor 1. 30s subunit bought at the site of the mRNA by initiation factor 3. Okay, so these initiation factors are required for the initiation of translation in the bacterial cells. Initiation factor 1, it prevents the premature binding of tRNAs to the A site. Means these tRNAs, they can just prematurely bind at the A site. It is not allowed. So only a correct F-met tRNA is bought. Initiation factor 2, it facilitates the binding of N-formyl methionine to the 30s subunit. N-formyl methionine to the 30s on the mRNA. That is done by initiation factor 2. And initiation factor 3 binds to 30s subunit and it prevents premature association of 50s subunit. And because once this assembly is there, then and then only the 50s subunit has to be bound. So this prevents, that is initiation factor 3, it prevents the premature association of 50s subunit. It enhances the specificity of P site for FMET tRNA. Now there is a P site, peptidyl site for the next tRNA to come. That specificity is enhanced by initiation factor 3. So initiation factor 1, 2 and 3 are needed for initiation of protein synthesis. Now if you see, if you make a comparison of prokaryotic and eukaryotic structures of the mRNA molecules, there is a small difference. In eukaryotes, we have a lot of junk DNA. Not all the DNA is made up of compact genes. Bacteria, all the mRNA, they are compact genes. Genes within genes are there. One mRNA can be read in 2 to 3 different transcripts, as I have shown earlier. So this prokaryotic mRNA, it contains multiple ribosome binding sites. That is, it contains, as you can see here, AUG, assigned Algorno sequence. AUG, which is coding for second protein. The same mRNA codes for 3 different types of proteins, and it contains 3 different assigned Algorno sequences, 3 different AUG codons and 3 different termination codons. That is how a E. coli or a bacterial mRNA is very compact in its function. Whereas the eukaryotic mRNA, one gene, one polypeptide, in the middle there are introns, there are exons. Introns are non-coding region. There will be a assigned Algorno, AUG, elongation, termination. Then there will be non-coding region. So there is huge junk DNA present in the eukaryotes. That makes the size of the eukaryotic chromosome large as compared to prokaryotes. This is just for information. A prokaryotic transcription and translation will have to be studied totally differently. I just have made a passing comparison here because this is an important point for you to know, to understand that prokaryotic genes are very compact, very powerful. There is no junk DNA in that. No wonder that is a small cell which has remained a bacteria all these years. It has remained primitive by its high type of functioning and high type of adaptability. Anyway, multiple ribosomal binding sites exist in the bacteria. That is the point here. So the formation of initiation complex, I have just mentioned. The large ribosomal subunit joins, then the 50s subunit becomes bound to the 30s complex. Here the energy which is needed is in the form of GTP hydrolysis. 50s subunit binds to 30s subunit, and GTP hydrolysis, GTP is converted into GDP and inorganic phosphate. 2 inorganic phosphates are released. The resulting 70s initiation complex has FMET tRNA, FMET N-formyl methionine residing in the ribosome's P site. So this is the formation of the initiation complex. The ribosome binding sequence of the mRNA, here you can see the ribosome binding is complementary to the part of the rRNA. So AUG, there is an anticodon site, UAC, which will bring the correct amino acid. So you can see this is a sectioned ribosome where it has 3 sites, A site, P site and E site. And this is how we already saw in the structure of tRNA, how the initiation complex is now ready for translocation. Okay. So see here, there is another tRNA, second tRNA incoming. It will be called as incoming charged tRNA. It is incoming charged tRNA. So you can see here, as the incoming charge, next charged tRNA comes, there is a elongation of polypeptide. Once a nonsense codon, here UAA is the nonsense codon. As nonsense codon is reached, instead of the tRNA, as you can see here, a release factor comes and binds at that site. Nonsense codons do not code for any amino acids. They come and join here and they release everything. What? Polypeptide chain is released, 30s and 50s are dissociated, mRNA is dissociated, and the protein synthesis for this one molecule stops. One molecule. Now if there is more amount of protein needed, immediately these two subunits will go and begin again. That is called as the ribosomal cycling. Okay, so this is the structure of translocation which I have already mentioned. The movement in 5' to 3' direction is called as translocation, and translocation is a major process in translation. Translation is the part where we discuss protein synthesis. So we have already seen this. This is how the elongation of initiation complex takes place. So initiation, charged tRNA binding to the A site, first codon is always AUG. Peptidyl transferase forms a peptide bond. Initiation complex, initiation factors are required. This is just a recap of what I just showed. Ribosome moves down the mRNA in a 5' to 3' direction. That is called as translocation. First step in initiation in bacteria is binding of the second amino acid tRNA. Okay, first and second. Binding of the second amino acid tRNA is the first step in elongation. Elongation takes place. You can pause this and read the slide. The same things which I have explained is put in words for you to take down as notes. Then termination, third step in elongation, that is translocation. Fourth step and the final step is termination. So elongation requires elongation factors. See this thing here, elongation Tu, elongation Ts, and elongation factor G. Okay, elongation factor Tu, it is binding of amino acid tRNA and GTP. tRNA and GTP. Now elongation factor Ts, it displaces the GDP from the EF. We have seen these reactions, how GTP is converted into GDP, and GDP has to be removed. So that GDP is utilized and elongation takes place. So the ribosome moves one codon towards 3' end every time, one 3' end of the mRNA using energy provided by GTP, and this GTP binds to the amino acid tRNA and it moves on. That is called as translocation. Translocation, you can call this EFG here, this EFG as translocase. This elongation factor is called as translocase. Okay, all this moves till the stop codon is reached. And there the release takes place or the termination takes place. So you can summarize this in 4 steps. Elongation begins with the binding of the second amino acid tRNA to the A site. The tRNA is escorted to the A site by the elongation factor Tu, which also carries 2 GTPs, and the tRNA binds to the GTP and GDP are released. Second step is peptide bond formation between the carboxylic group of the terminal amino acid and the P site amino acid, that is the newly arrived amino acid at the A site. So there is a peptidyl transferase enzyme. I have explained that in structure of tRNA. Peptidyl transferase enzyme catalyzes this reaction and this takes place in the large subunit. In the large subunit, if you again recall the composition of the 50S rRNA, there is a 23S RNA molecule. Recall the composition of the 50S subunit. The reaction of peptidyl transferase enzyme, this is a very important point, is catalyzed by peptidyl transferase activity, which is carried out at the 23S rRNA molecule of the large subunit. Okay, and in the third step, after the binding is there, the GTP is hydrolyzed to GDP, elongation takes place. The discharged tRNA, it moves from P site to E site, that is exit site, it is removed, and as the peptidyl tRNA translocates, it takes the mRNA along with it. Along the mRNA, it moves to on the mRNA. Each time it goes to next codon, one codon each, the movement is there, and around 30 to 50 amino acids per second the rate of protein synthesis takes place in bacteria, and finally the release at the stop codons is taking place. Release involves release factors, I already mentioned that. So this is how termination takes place. Now finally, let us see there are some errors in protein synthesis. What are these errors? These errors may be due to mutations. If the mutation is on the mRNA, then there will be errors in the protein synthesis. When the sequence of codons present on the mRNA is not same as that of the DNA, we call it as a mutation. But apart from that, DNA is correct, mRNA is correct, still there can be errors in protein synthesis which results into diseases. If a wrong protein is formed, you get disease. There are genetic inherited diseases. There are metabolic error inherited diseases. Metabolic errors may result into erroneous proteins which may cause diseases. So what you eat is very important. Remember this thing. Your diet, junk food, many mutagenic agents or many protein inhibitors which you may unknowingly eat or consume in your body, or your body may synthesize due to consumption of wrong foods. Same thing in the bacteria, in the environment in which it is growing. There may be metabolites which may be causing the protein folding or errors in the protein synthesis. What are those errors? Misactivated amino acid. As I said, this is a mischarged amino acid due to some error in amino acid binding or enzyme or protein or gene mutation, anything. So mischarged amino acid gives rise to a mischarged tRNA and error in protein synthesis due to tRNA mischarging. First case. Second case, ribosomal misreading. Error in the protein synthesis due to ribosomal misreading. tRNA is correctly charged, but if the ribosome is not reading it properly, that is the 23S units or something, these all are genetic materials, these all are genomic materials. If there are some errors, there will be error in the protein synthesis. In eukaryotes it may cause diseases, in prokaryotes it may cause erroneous metabolism which may lead to abnormal cell growth. Finally, there is a structure called as polysomes and ribosomal recycling. Polypeptide change elongation as it proceeds at the rate of make a correction, whatever I said, it is 3 to 5 amino acids per second, not 30 to 50, I was wrong there. It is 3 to 5 amino acids per second. So polypeptide chain elongation proceeds at a rate of 3 to 5 amino acids per second. The efficiency of translation may be increased. As I said, basically for one ribosome it is 3 to 5. If 10 ribosomes are there, it will be 30 to 50. Okay. So that is how the efficiency is increased. When I said 30 to 50, that is a general total of efficiency of translocation. That is general mathematics stats. But if you are speaking for one ribosome throughout the chain, it accumulates at 3 to 5. But it is not that simple as that. One mRNA, on that many ribosomes they bind and continuously they are recycling. Such structures are called as polysomes. And recycling of these ribosomes is carried out by RRF or ribosome recycling factors. Ribosome recycling factor RRF is a protein found in the bacterial cells as well as eukaryotes. The function of ribosome recycling factor is to recycle the ribosomes after the termination codon is reached. This circular complex position of ribosomes which just have terminated in the 5' end, they again come and join at the initiation complex, that is shine diagonal sequence, and just go on resuming with the help of initiation factors again and again. So the ribosomes are recycled and rapidly reinitiated to second round of translation. This is called as such structures where one mRNA has multiple ribosomes are called as polysomes, and polysomes with the help of RRF, ribosome recycling factor, they are responsible for recycling of the mRNA till for how long this will be there? As long as the cell requires the protein in whatever the amount. As long as the need is there, that long this protein synthesis factory will be on. Once the necessity is over, it will be stopped. How does this thing happen? This is called as regulation of gene expression. We will see that in your next unit. Regulation of gene expression is something controlling the protein synthesis. That is yet another interesting perspective. We will see it afterwards. So this figure, you can just pause and see all the steps once again. This should give you a very good idea of how to draw the protein synthesis. This is a beautiful picture shown in initiation, elongation, termination. Even the initiation complex, completed polypeptide chain, all are described nicely. So just have a moment to pause this video and see the structure once again. This is electron microscopic structure here of the large polyribosome in prokaryotic cells, polysomal structures, one mRNA with many ribosomes like this. Typically, a single mRNA is used to make many copies of polypeptide. Multiple ribosomes, they trail along the same mRNA. These are called as polysomes or polyribosomes. A ribosome requires less than a minute to translate an average sized mRNA. Within 1 minute it will, then it will again and again and again. When again and again many proteins, they are continuously synthesizing the polypeptide chain from the same mRNA, that structure is seen like this. This is called as a polyribosome. This polyribosomal structure is very interesting in eukaryotes. You see, this is in eukaryotes. In eukaryotes, what happens? The 5' end and the 3' end, they join. It forms a circular molecule. The mRNA molecule, it circularizes off, and a series of ribosomes now can simultaneously translate the same eukaryotic mRNA in a circular form. They start from the 5' and at the 3' and then just go on release again. So in a circular fashion in the eukaryotes, but in the prokaryotes it is in a linear form, in a straight form. So finally, if you see the energetics of translation, energy consumption for synthesis of polypeptide of n amino acids, you see where I have mentioned the energies. N number of ATPs are required to charge the tRNAs. tRNA charging in the cytoplasm, where you associate the tRNA with a correct amino acid that is charging, it is n number of ATPs are required. Okay, because 2n high energy bonds are spent during the charging process. 1 GTP is needed for initiation. N1 GTPs are required for binding of N1 amino acid tRNA A site. Means whenever there will be a binding required, 1 GTP will be required, and 1 GTP is required for each translocation. Once it moves ahead, at every step there is 1 GTP required, and 1 GTP will be required during termination. So total 3 N ATPs and 3 N GTPs are utilized. The rate of protein synthesis in E. coli is around 15 amino acids per second, around, that is in the log phase. 15 amino acids means around that many 45 nucleotides per second average. As I said, 3 to 5 nucleotides per second, 3 to 5 amino acids per second is the minimum speed. Maximum speed is 15 amino acids per second. On an average, with a polysomal structure, 30 to 50 amino acids are synthesized, and it is similar to the process of speeding of RNA polymerase, almost same. In my last part, I had mentioned all these stages. Again, you can stop. I have explained all these components required for the 5 major stages of protein synthesis in E. coli. Just pause this slide here, read it in high resolution. If you think the slide is blurred, change the resolution, make a high resolution of this video. You will be able to read this. Activation of amino acids, initiation, elongation, termination, and the finally last one is folding and post translational processing. This is one of the most important part in protein synthesis. Once the polypeptide chain is released, specific enzymes, cofactors and other components for removal of the starting residues. As I said, initially protein synthesis starts, unwanted polypeptide chain is synthesized, that has to be removed. So removal of initiating residues and signal sequences requires proteolytic cleavages. So additional proteolytic processing is also there. Modification of the terminal residues are there. Then binding with hydrophobic interactions, hydrophilic interactions, cysteine molecules, they'll form disulfide linkages, carboxylic bonds, various types of bonds, whichever you have studied in your chemistry class, that will be applicable here. Attachment of phosphate groups, methyl groups, carboxyl groups. Then carbohydrates, proteinaceous carbohydrates, lipoproteins. So addition of lipids, prosthetic groups, carboxyl groups, carbohydrates, all these are the final part of a protein. Means once the protein is released, it doesn't end there, it doesn't get formed into a functional protein. Folding and translational processing makes a protein functional, and this is how the translation and the protein synthesis takes place in bacteria. Some differences do exist in eukaryotic and prokaryotic protein synthesis. Maybe in another video I will be telling about the differences between eukaryotic and prokaryotic protein synthesis, but that's all for now when it comes to bacterial protein synthesis. I hope you understood this beautiful mechanism of life. Life is dependent upon translation. My next lecture will be to tell you how beautifully and efficiently a bacteria couples this transcription and translation protein synthesis at a time. Means transcription and translation doesn't stop for each other to finish. Means even before the transcription has not ended, translation starts, and it is called as a coupled transcription and translation cycle in bacteria. That will be the point of my next discussion. So as I say, understanding genetics needs a different mindset. Each and every person cannot understand this, but you are very lucky who have come to this point of the lecture to and having a curiosity to with a quest to know what protein synthesis is. So I hope this quest for knowledge remains for further lectures. In my next lecture and the final lecture of this unit will be bacterial transcriptional and translational cycle, and it's a coupled one. Goodbye for now.